Hello, everybody, and welcome to Almost in Focus, episode 9. Some people said we wouldn't make it this far. They were us. But we have. This week, we're going to have a little chat about the photographs we didn't take, which we know sounds a bit ridiculous for a photography podcast, but
Photography in reverse.
yeah, essentially, it's what didn't you do? Quite often, I think the best photographs are the ones that we didn't take, or the ones you think you've taken and then you get home and discover the film wasn't winding on. But that's not quite what we're talking about today, is it?
No, I can think of a few of those as well, where I know I made a photograph. I know the photograph was good, but I've never seen the negative.
Yep, it never actually happened.
Yeah.
That's happened all too often. It's just the days before digital photography, because at least you can check it on a digital camera. But some of the best photographs are the ones you've taken. You go, that was amazing. That was the shot. That was the Pulitzer Prize winning photograph. Camera's got no film in it. Or you open the back of the film, it's not wound back. Any number of brilliant disasters that destroy those perfect moments. Anyway, before we dive into that, have we had any adventures photographically this week, you or I?
I don't know about adventures. I mean, I know last time we were talking about trying to get projects going. So you were talking about chasing nurses and some such.
Yeah.
And I was all full of hope about a new project, which since we recorded the last one, that's not happening at the moment. So long story short, I was hoping to photograph a local community of Druids, and some of the members of this particular group, this grove as they're called, were very open to me being there with a camera, which is great. But a couple of the others were thinking that they might end up performing rather than practicing their beliefs, and I don't want that to be the case. So I backed off, which is disappointing, but it's the right thing to do. So I don't have a project at the moment. I tried to do the darkroom live stream this week, and then my circuit breakers went just as I was about to start streaming.
That sounds about right for,
I know, sod's law.
let's say, the way the week's been going.
So yeah, it's been a bit of a non-photographic couple of weeks for me. What about you?
I mean, I got an email back from my nurse that I was chasing. That was on Friday. She's been on annual leave. Unfortunately, she's not allowed to get involved with the project because of the trust's rules around engagement with social media and things. So I have to now chase the trust's PR team. So I tried to bypass a system and now I've got to work with it, but that's by the by, I guess. It's not a no, it's just I have to get the right people to say yes, which is always kind of the way with these kind of projects, especially when you're working with a trust or a organisation like the NHS. There's always somebody you have to get a signed piece of paper from.
Well, yeah, it's better to do it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, and this is part of what we're going to discuss today, isn't it? You got to do things the right way. You got to know when to make the images and when to say no. And yeah, so it's happening, but it's happening slowly. All good projects take time, I suspect, is the best way to put it. Above and beyond that, I've applied for a PhD, so people will have to call me the doctor if I've managed to get that done.
Why did I send you that link?
I know, it was brilliant. I'm really pleased you sent me that link. Fully funded PhD. Who knows? I'm up against a lot of people. September start for this, and we shall see what the general outcome is. But yeah, hopefully, I could get a PhD without spending all my own money, which would be nice. That all being said, we shall see. Do I need to do more academics? Probably not, but I think it's worth a punt. So that's going to maybe get me focused in on my work again.
Well, we both have academic chips on our shoulders, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, let's be entirely honest. That's a long running theme of our lives. I think for me it's the English teacher that once told me, just get a nice factory job and don't worry about going to sixth form or university. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson, wherever you are. You have been an inspiration to me to prove you wrong.
Named and shamed.
Oh yeah, named and shamed. I may have had a bottle of wine this evening. Loose Lips Sinks podcast.
Unfortunately, I can't name and shame my one. I never actually knew his name. He was the person who did my first diagnosis of dyslexia at the Dyslexia Institute in Staines. So this would have been in the late 90s, early 2000s. And he said to me that the best I could hope for would be stacking shelves in the supermarket. Now, I've done that job. It is a hard job. It's physically, quite grueling. You're shifting like crates of beans all the time, whatever. but it's not what I aspired to. Yeah, one day I'll have enough certificates with my name on that I can go put a dent in them with them or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
great height. I know what you mean. I think this is an interesting point. Not what we were planning on discussing, but one we should probably just touch in on. The power of an educator, and we are talking education now a little bit more than photography, but photography education too. The power an educator has to motivate or completely demotivate an individual is really important,
Absolutely.
you know? And I think I will often have to sort of think to myself, what I say has massive impact on this kid. A throwaway comment from me could do a lot of damage. And I think we have to think about that when we talk about crits. I mean, there are still crits from university and from A level that are stuck in my brain that had huge impact on, not always in a positive way, but not always in a negative way either, on my practice on raising the camera and taking that photo. You know, um, this nicely segues in, not that it was planned. Let's be honest, we don't plan anything, into sort of what we were discussing, the non-taking of photographs. Which actually, I'm going to start with talking about a photograph that I did take, weirdly, but it has stopped me taking these photographs ever since. I took a photograph in Cardiff city centre in about, it would have been 2006. Very specific, this I know.
I think you mentioned this photo a couple of episodes ago, actually.
Probably, I think I did, yeah. And see, that's how much it impacts me. And anyone who's seen Doctor Who, it's round the corner from where Billy Piper works as a shop assistant in episode 1 with Christopher Eccleston. Just there you go, setting the scene.
Yeah. They say it's London, but no, it was Cardiff.
Yep, St David's Centre. Anyway, there's a homeless man asleep. And yes, I have talked about this before, so sorry guys if you listen to other episodes and remember this, but I didn't take it from this point of view. And I photographed this homeless guy. I didn't ask him. I didn't engage with him. I took a shot of him sleeping. As a teenager, I didn't even think of any of the implications of him as a human being, because let's be honest, quite a lot of teenagers are not maybe the most thinking creatures out there. I had a goal in mind. I wanted to make a picture. I wanted to make a picture that I thought my lecturers would go, that's edgy. In reality, of course, they've probably seen more photos of people living on the streets than I've had hot dinners at this point. I haven't photographed a homeless person since that situation. The feedback I got from our lecturers, it was Clive Landon, I believe. He says to me, what do you know about this guy? And I was like, well, nothing. I don't know anything about him. He says, so why have you taken a photo of him? Have you gained or what have you changed by making that image? And I remember thinking, well, you wanted me to take pictures of the world and show what's going on. Why do I need to know who these people are? In my absolute arrogant 18-year-old self, thinking the picture was enough. It isn't. You need to know your subjects. You need to know who they are to tell their story. Generic homeless person asleep on the side of the street says nothing. It boils them down to the most basic of stereotypes, and it's not helpful or productive, and it's exploitative. I took a photo of that guy to get a grade.
I think it's quite interesting the language that you're using. You're
Mm.
using all my trigger words. You're using all the words you know I hate.
Yes, because that's what that image was.
Yeah, you were taking. You weren't giving anything back. There was no conversation. There was no interaction between you. You say you took the shot. Essentially, it is a you're my best mate, but I'm going to be horrible now. You know, it was an act of violence in a way,
Yeah, it was a,
and
unknowingly,
yeah,
naive.
it was. We were teenagers,
It's a
and
learning, those words are used on purpose. That it wasn't a collaboration. Good photography is a collaboration between you and your subject. Even good street photography is a collaboration. Somebody catches your eye, you want to take that shot. They see you, you get the shot. They smile, they give you the nod. You know you've made that shot. You move on.
I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I know that we were both looking a lot at Don McCullen at the
Mm.
time, and now he did a very famous portrait of a homeless man.
Yep.
Did Clive mention that to you when he was talking to you? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think he showed me that. It was the soup kitchen stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah,
And yeah,
because that's what you're right. You know, as a photograph, you just see this dark, gritty, black and white photograph of the guy with the unkept beard and the hollow eyes. And you know, if you aspire to it photographically, that's one thing. But what isn't often spoken about at least not outside of photographic circles, is how much time Don McCullum spent at the soup kitchens before photographing. That they were aware of him being there with the camera. They were accepting of it eventually, and that was a key thing. And yeah, I think I don't remember if I was in the same crit where Clive went
Live
on
in my
that
arse.
one. No.
But rightly so. It's something I learnt from and something that I always try and instill with my students. One of the things we discuss at A-level photography now, which I didn't get taught, I'll be honest, when I did my A-levels, is ethics. In fact, I think I stole your PowerPoint, if I'm entirely honest, and tweaked it a little bit.
There's nothing to tweak. My PowerPoints are perfect, I'll have you know.
I apologise. Maybe I just stuck my name. Maybe I deleted your name and put mine on it.
That's plagiarism. I'll have you for that.
Sharing homework. Can I copy your homework? No, it's resource sharing. It's what all good teachers do. But yeah, and I always kind of taught them through ethics because I think it's really important. And with that, it's the photographs that you choose to make and the photographs you choose to say, no, this isn't the right time to make that picture. And I haven't pointed my camera. Well, no, tell a lie. Let's be completely honest. I did try to go back and photograph the homeless in a more appropriate way. And I lasted a day. It wasn't the right project for me. I wasn't able to do it at the time. I wasn't mature enough to handle it. And since then, I've never photographed a homeless person because I don't think I can do it justice. I've not lived that life. I'm not saying you have to live the life of the people you're photographing. I'm not saying if you want to photograph LGBTQ, you need to be LGBTQ, although I do think it helps. I think you need to at least know your subjects really well. If you're part of a community you're documenting, then that's brilliant. I don't think you should exclude yourself from communities that are new to you or that you are not specifically part of. But you certainly need to be able to be comfortable in that community to do them justice. And I think the problem with documenting homelessness in this country is however well-intentioned and however liberal you are as an individual, it's always going to feel exploitative because you are always going to be in a position of more power than that subject.
Well, it's an interesting point. I hugely enjoy photographing communities that I am not part of, but are part of the British makeup. So, my example of wanting to photograph Druids. I'm not a Druid. I have a curiosity around paganism. I've made projects around other elements of traditional living, so eco villages, Morris dancers,
Pigeon racing? Pigeon racing?
pigeon racing, yeah, traditional crafts, etc. as well. So there is a theme on those older ideals and those old traditions and ways of doing stuff and ways of living that I do keep coming back to. But I'm not there as someone with expert knowledge. I'm not there, with experience of whatever it is. But when I go into these situations, even if I got a camera with me, the camera's in my bag.
Yeah.
And it stays that way for quite a long time. I remember with the eco village I was photographing. I was working with a friend of mine, and he was doing lots of landscapes and still lifes, and he just got the camera out straight away. And he seemed a bit confused that my camera's in my bag, and I'm sitting at the fireplace drinking a cup of tea with people living in the woods.
Yeah.
And we're just chatting and we're just getting to know each other a bit.
Well, I mean, that kind of that's reminiscent of like Diane Arbus and things like that. When you read interviews with her or Diane Arbus, sorry, I always get the name how she has her name said wrong. Or when you read her biographies, she wasn't part of those communities, but she wanted to get to know them and become part of them before she documented. And she talks about the camera being a passport to different communities, and I think that's true. And I think the other thing is you touched on it then. You might not be part of that community, you might not be an expert in that field, but once you start the project, you have to become an expert in that field. You become micro obsessed with it. I mean, David Hearn's book, which we've talked about before,
On being a photographer,
talks about if you're going to do a project, you need to be interested in it. It has to be something that you are passionate about. I thoroughly agree. Only projects that I've had that have been successful have been ones that I am thoroughly passionate about. If you haven't got any passion about the topic, they're just soulless images.
see, I love that book. I think it's such a useful resource, and I send my students to it all the time. I actually don't agree with that page. I don't agree with that. I
You're
don't
not.
agree with her, no. I think you have to be passionate about learning.
Not
I
necessarily.
think if you choose a subject that you know a lot about already. Now, I've
Mm,
told my students with their current project, which is a documentary, to go with something they know, but they also have a deadline that's only 2 weeks away, so they don't have long.
yeah.
But if I'm photographing what I already know,
Mm,
I'm not going to be as invested in it because I already know it.
yeah.
But if it's new to me and it's a case of, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's different. And if I start photographing those things, if they're new and exciting to me, they'll be new and exciting to whoever's looking at the photographs.
Yeah.
And I remember having this argument with one of our theoretical tutors at uni.
Would it be Mr. Walker?
No, it wasn't. But it was the one who spent time in Japan photographing crows.
Helen Sear. There you go.
And she did not grasp where I was coming from
Mm.
at all. You know, she's saying if you want to learn something, you can open a book. 'Cause I want to learn it with my eyes.
You want to learn it by knowing the people or talking to them, hearing their
Yeah,
stories.
I want to get that as close to first hand as I can, really.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I always kind of interpreted that as what Hearn meant, but maybe that's just a different reading of it. That you need to be. It doesn't necessarily mean something you've been an expert in, but it's something that you want to learn about. It's weird because the projects that I most have enjoyed have been where I have been essentially a tourist in another man's land
Mm.
or another person's lands, technically. There has to be a point of similarity in that you can bridge that gap, get to know people. I will be honest, and anyone who's met me knows that I will talk the hind legs off a donkey, a horse, a giraffe. I don't really care. As long as people are listening, I'll have a conversation with them. So I do think that the gift of the gab gets you into many doors and gets you started on projects. But I think
I
you have
nearly
to be.
said a really bad joke, and I'm not going to.
Now, please,
No, no, I'm not
this
going
is
to
the
do it.
place for it. No, but I do think that you kind of have to have a point of cross interest with whoever you're photographing, and it can be really, really basic. Quite often, I've found that my subjects, whatever the project, often have an interest in photography because it's kind of a universal. Everyone likes to make pictures, really, especially in this day and age. And so I quite often find, like you say, before I get my camera out, we're chatting about photography, we're talking about cameras, we're talking about such and such a picture. My granddad used to shoot film, etc. And it builds a rapport. And if you have a rapport with your subjects, you have a rapport with the people you're documenting, you get better images because that cheesy smile, that forced grin that happens when you point a camera at someone doesn't happen if they feel relaxed around you or they don't feel exploited. They feel like you're chatting with a friend and the camera just happens to be there. It's a big difference. Yeah. And I think that's important. So tell me about the moments you've decided not to point your camera at something or why you've chosen not to take a picture.
Okay, there's one that stuck in my mind about the same time as you and the homeless guy in Cardiff.
Hmm.
Um, Actually, no, it was that year, but it was later on. And I think some of this came actually from your experience in a roundabout way. So when we went to uni, I had these kind of ideas in mind of being traveling the world with a camera, photographs in National Geographic or whatever, these delusions of grandeur that I think all teenage documentary photographers have. And some do it, and I'm really pleased for them and where we've seen people from uni go off in those fields. And I remember uh, a lecture with Clive and Ken together, I think it was. And I'm now thinking it was in response to you. I think you triggered this.
It's entirely possible. I do have that effect on people.
And they were saying that when you go to photograph, you have to be respectful for the people you are photographing. So, and the example they gave, I'll never forget, was you're photographing an old lady and she trips and falls headfirst into the fireplace. Do you help her? Do you photograph her? Or do you do nothing? It was
Yeah.
the options given. And no, obviously the correct answer is that you help her and then pick up your camera off the floor afterwards where you've dropped it. I think someone said you take a photograph and then you pull her out the fire.
Yeah.
But I don't know who said that.
I
But
think I have a fairly good idea who, but I won't name and shame. Same person who went to lectures with a bottle of wine in their hand.
yes, I think it probably was. Anyway, and I do think that was the timing of that would fit. That it was probably they've seen your photographs in the crits. They've probably seen someone else do a similar thing, seen that there was a theme that was starting to appear, had a chat, and then put us all in our place.
Sounds about right, yeah.
And a couple of months later, I went with one of my flatmates down to the doctor's so she could get a prescription for a inhaler or something. And while we're waiting in the waiting room, this little old lady comes in all frantic. I've got my camera with me. I always have a camera with me wherever I am. And this lady runs in. She's pale and she's hands are shaking. And then the receptionist runs out the door with her, and they come sort of shuffling in and out, and they bring in this guy who's well into his 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I would say. Very, very frail, tall, skinny guy, bald. And you couldn't see his face because he has a blood clotting condition. He had a fall and he cut his head. Now, in most cases, that would be a case of, okay, plaster on it and a trip to the doctors or whatever to make sure he hasn't got a concussion and so on. But because his blood couldn't clot, it was just red all down his face. And I remember my hand touching my camera and I couldn't lift it.
Yeah. It's the human impact.
It was that realization that me making a photograph, yes, it would be a very dramatic photo. And I had colour film.
Yeah. That was rare.
I know.
Would that be Fuji by any chance?
Probably was with me, but I couldn't do it. And I realized then very quickly that those aspirations of traveling the world and photographing conflicts and all sorts, I'm not cut out for that world at all.
Do you think ultimately to do that kind of work, you have to be a bit of a bastard? Technical term there. Without alienating anyone who we're going to have on the podcast in the future.
No, I don't think so. I think you've got to be very thick-skinned.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to compartmentalize what you see, what you document, so you're able to do it then and then reflect on it later. I think anyone who goes into that field being completely blasé about what they're going to photograph will not sustain it. I think it's an impossibility. I think you've got to be hugely human.
Yeah.
You've got to have empathy, but you've got to have a thick skin and a strong stomach to be able to cope with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've watched and then we're not sponsored, so sorry, we're not getting any money for mentioning this, but I don't know if you've watched the Love and War documentary.
No, I haven't yet, no.
Worth the watch. She definitely seems to compartmentalize family life at home and her as a war photographer. They're almost like two different people sharing a body from what I saw. That's my interpretation. And she talks about the difficulty of balancing being a parent and being a wife and also documenting wars. I'm at the same mindset as you. I think you have to be a certain type of person to do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking immediately of Anastasia Taylor-Lind, who we had as a visiting lecturer, didn't we?
Yes.
And there's an overriding theme all the way through her work, which is that femininity and it's a humanity. And she never loses sight of that human element and the importance of the strength in the women she photographs in conflict scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, her Peshmerga work, I still think is it hurts me a little bit, but one of the sort of truly special pieces of work that I've seen.
Agreed.
I think it's incredibly powerful to make it so young. And the only reason it hurts me is because I'm jealous. I think it's brilliant work. I'm just jealous that I have not made something like it. And that's just a petty little man thing. But by the way, guys, if you can hear a weird noise, that's our new kitten trashing the room around me. Sorry. Yeah, I think that work like that is incredibly powerful. But I don't think just anybody can make work like that.
No.
Having a camera and being a good photographer doesn't necessarily mean you can make work like that.
And I think I'm thinking through the people that we were at uni with, years above us, years below us as well. I don't think there were many people on the course who had that combination of technical skill, artistic understanding, and that level of empathy so well. Will Hartley did.
Yeah, Ivor Prickett.
Ivor, yeah. Malika, a couple of years below us, she did.
Yeah, with the refugees.
Yeah, Waiting Room to Europe was the work that she was doing at the time.
Yeah, I think there are some very. I think it's that there are social documentary makers like yourself and I who are anthropologists with cameras essentially, and we like to get to know communities and not necessarily focus on the dramatic, just the daily lives. I think Eugene Smith and and then there are the Robert Cappers, who we all think we want to be until we're in that situation, until that moment happens. And that moment happens, we go, God, this isn't for me. That's I think the two main types of documentary photographers, really, the country doctor style or the war zone. And I think to photograph the war zone, you have to have something different. You have to be different. Like you say, I think you have to be shoot now, process later, not process.
I think Kappa. I think war photography has moved on a very long way since Robert Kappa.
Oh God, yeah.
He was one of the best without a doubt, but he was there for the spectacle.
Yes.
And he was a massive danger junkie. Same with Larry Burrows. I mean, Larry Burrows was always throwing himself out of helicopters, to make a great photograph. Huge adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
But I think photography moved on very, very quickly through the 60s and 70s. And again, probably during the 2000s.
Yeah.
It had another big spike in kind of a shift towards a very empathy-led image.
Yeah. The spectacle went with Vietnam, really, didn't it?
Yeah. I think that was a real shift. I mean, we said about Don McCullen. So the dead Vietnamese soldier with his belongings scattered around him.
Yeah.
The shell-shocked shoulder.
Well done saying that.
Shoulder. I can't say that.
Yeah. I've had a load of wine, so I'm not even going to try. The soldier with shell shock. There you go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yes. That particular image. Yeah.
And with Larry Burrows with reaching out, we saw a real shift in the photograph having a strong emotional attachment to the characters within the scene.
Yeah.
Which you don't get with Robert Kappa. His D-Day photos, there's one photograph where one of the soldiers, you get a kind of a sense of personality in their face and what they're experiencing. Otherwise, it's very factual, very composition-led.
It's the image, not the story.
Yes, it's it's not that it lacks emotion.
No.
But it's not led by it.
Yes, it's not emotive photography. It's factual, it's recording.
Mm.
And documentary's moved on from that. And it has to, because let's be honest, if you don't evolve, you die. And photography's had to evolve because we don't have the Sunday Times magazine anymore. We don't, or not in the same way. We don't have big picture essays anymore. So you have to have these emotive stories far more than you did.
Are we going to get an angry email from the editor of the Sunday Times now you've said that?
Probably. They don't do picture stories like they did.
No, they don't.
Even don't get me. Let's flick back to the Guardian when we could used to get it for 25p. The university shop, and the centre page used to be amazing photography, and I mean amazing photography, to the point where my walls at university were plastered with the centre page of the Guardian.
Well, yeah, it was Magnum photographers quite often.
Yeah, big names. Do you see that now? Because I don't. First of all, I can't afford to buy the Guardian every day. It's too damned expensive. But the photography element isn't there anymore, not in the same way it was. We could argue that's due to the rise in digital photography and mobile phone and citizen journalism, and we could get really media studies in here if we really wanted to. But what really has happened is photography's changed, and so the place where it's seen has changed.
Right, I've got to say this. I'm sorry, I'm going completely off topic.
Yeah.
You can't see this because you're just listening to audio, but I can see Toby, and he's sitting here like a Bond villain, and he's got rid of the kitten, and he's stroking a duck in the same slow manner.
I'm soothing the duck. It's Noodle. She needs soothing. So the kitten is now tearing around the living room, and Noodle is now
excellent shredded duck, just getting some plum sauce.
No. Well, to be fair, she bullies the kitten something chronic, so she's I'm trying to calm her down so she has a settle down and doesn't bother the kitten. And I'm also trying to stop her quacking in the background of our podcast. My house is like a blooming zoo. There's parrots covered up in this room just in the hope that they won't start. So yeah, but yes, I'm going full Bond villain here. You're mistaken. You're mistaken, Mr. Warland. But yeah, what were we talking about? I've thrown the conversation. I've now got a duck on my shoulder. That's it. I've given up. She's sat on my shoulder. We'll have to. I don't know. Do we have video content recorded while we're doing this? Because if so, people can see.
We don't, but I am going to just do a photo of what I'm seeing. There we go.
There we go. A duck's backside. There you go.
That's
there
fantastic.
There she is. Do you want to turn around and look at the camera? No. Sorry, she's decided to be shy. There you go.
It's best we're going to get. I will.
A duck's backside in my face.
A duck's backside. Yep.
We did promise that this podcast did not stay on topic.
Okay, right. We've slated the greats of photojournalism now.
Yeah, we've slagged off the Times. What else have we done? Stayed completely off topic.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for me, that was like a big turning point. Anyway, going back to the bleeding guy in the doctor's surgery.
Yeah.
Back on topic.
Well done. Navigated safely back to the realms of real conversation.
And yeah, it was like a real kind of physical abruption to like something blocking my arm that I couldn't lift the camera to photograph him. And some of that was shock.
Yeah.
The kitten just attacked the duck.
Yeah.
This is so bizarre.
My life.
And then some of it was that sudden awareness of what Ken and Clive have been talking about.
Yeah.
In my photograph would not help him and his pain. It would not calm his wife, who was terrified that he was bleeding to death in front of her. Now, I don't think that happened. I think he was okay. At the doctors, they would have got him stitched up, sent down to the Royal Gwent Hospital, so maybe he wasn't okay.
Yeah, not the greatest of hospitals, to be fair.
No, I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot better now. There we go.
Yeah, well done. Nice save. They didn't kill me. Let's go with that.
Oh, dear. Yeah. And that's kind of been like a steering point for me ever since, is, what not to point the camera at.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you, I've not photographed anyone. I don't think I've ever photographed anyone living on the street. Maybe once pre-uni or in that first couple of months of uni, maybe I did. But I don't think if I did, I would have looked at the negative and gone, and it's nothing.
And let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you do. You have to have those experiences, though, to learn, don't you? I don't think you can just say to people, don't do these things, because everyone has their own boundaries to what is their not point the camera moment. Personal one for me, and I often beat myself up about this, and we have discussed this on our morning drives in the past. When I went to see my mother before she died, for those of you who don't know, doesn't really give a lot of context, but my mum very quickly was diagnosed with cancer and died within 2 days. Now, I got a phone call. I rang my dad to talk to him about something else. He says, can't talk, gone to hospital. Your mum's been picked up by an ambulance. I drove to them to see them. And in the car, I had my camera. And part of me wanted to document every moment because I knew something was going to be going wrong. This was a big situation. By the time I'd got there, the doctors had already said she had maybe a week, but realistically that she was terminal and that was it. I never lifted that camera, never took a photo, not a frame. It sat in the back of the car the entire time. And afterwards, I went round the house where they'd been living and I photographed the things that she'd left lying around, but the photos never meant it. They never hit home. They never had the power that I wanted them to. And realistically, those are the photos that I was right not to raise the camera. I was right not to take that camera in and document her suffering. I know for a fact that she wouldn't have cared. She was always happy for me to shove a camera in her face. She was always happy to be documented. I mean, she suffered probably more than many at the hands of my camera. She wasn't fond of a photograph, but she didn't stop me. And she would never have said no. But those are the photographs I didn't take. But weirdly, the images I can see the best. I didn't need photographs of that.
I don't think that's weird.
This becomes therapy with Tom and Toby. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, but In a way, it is. So, a couple of points for me from that was my auntie, who I got to know very well in those last years of her life,
Yeah,
and I photographed her for my final project at uni. She died a couple of years later,
yeah,
and I went and saw her in a nursing home about a week before she died. And at that point, she'd gone from being this figure of independence
yeah,
to she couldn't stand, she couldn't hear, she couldn't see, she was just miserable sitting in a chair. And she was a shadow of herself. Now, I didn't photograph her at that point, and I'm very proud of the photographs I did make of her beforehand.
yeah. When she,
But I knew I wasn't going to see her again after that. I knew I could see it. Again, I have that image in my mind. That photograph is there, and that's my aunt. It's not the same, the level of relationship as you and your mum.
yeah,
So it's not surprising that those are the images you see in your mind, because it's a very traumatic time. But uh, so there's that. But you're right. It is also, photography is a therapy. The idea you had your camera with you,
mm,
even though you didn't use it and you went around the house afterwards and you photographed stuff, that is therapy. When my daughter was born, it was an emergency C-section, and I basically hadn't eaten anything because I didn't know when we were going to get taken down to the OR rooms. So I didn't want to be out getting a cereal bar or a sandwich and come back and find out my wife's already been taken away. So I just kept on waiting, and I turned very, very grey, and they thought I was about to pass out, and they kicked me out the OR, and I was livid. And when I forced them to let me back in,
yeah,
I photographed everything. I photographed every second, and I got told off again because I stood up to photograph over the cover that they put up so that me and my wife couldn't see anything.
yeah,
And I photographed the moment that my daughter was brought out of her belly.
yeah.
And I've posted that photograph online, and I've shared it with you and so on as well. I'm very proud of that photograph because of that moment, and in that moment, dealing with all that stress and all that anxiety that's going on in my head,
Yeah,
photography was the thing I turned to stabilize myself. It was therapy, and I was uplifted from the situation, I suppose, a little bit.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm still very much attuned to what's happening in terms of, the birth of my child and so on. But I'm lifted away from the anxiety because in that moment, I'm doing what I know.
Well, we've talked about this before, haven't we? I mean, for me, when I had my surgery,
Mm.
the first way I saw what is now normal to me was through a camera. It was my way of detaching myself from what was happening and processing. And yeah, it's a valid way. If we were musicians, we'd write songs about it, I guess. If we
Well, I
were,
do that too. They're not
well,
very
yeah.
good though.
Well, I don't know. I like the one where you used one of my quotes as a lyric. But
Mate, the one I'm working on for a long time still, it's, what I have got is come out of you having your surgery.
well, there you go. See, these are the things, though. So that noise, by the way, was a kitten taking out a lamp. One moment, folks. There you go. No damage done. Maybe next time I'll put all the animals in a different room. Almost in focus. Sponsored by Pets for Vets. No, yeah, you kind of do get photography as therapy, don't you? It's not the only art form for it, but I do find there are moments of clarity when I'm out with my camera that maybe I wouldn't have in any other way. There was a day when I was shooting on my masters. I can tell you the pictures I took. I can tell you everything about it. It was an early morning. I was shooting a bit of film on an abandoned dock. To this day, the most clear, the most at peace my mind has been was doing that shoot. And those are the moments. Those are the moments that you have as a photographer. I was walking along the old dock, which is now overrun with plants and things. And as I walked along, a flock of birds flew out from the old dock into the sky. And I took this shot that to me is one of my favourite photographs that I've ever taken. And it's absolutely nothing special, but it's more about the fact that the moment I took that shot was pure clarity. And that is what the power of photography is, isn't it? That moment, you can have those moments of pure clarity. It isn't the power of, the birth of your daughter or the photographs that I didn't take of my mother, but it was the moment of just peace.
We are going further and further off topic,
We are,
as
yeah.
always. But there was an idea given to me on my masters by I've forgotten his name. Starts with P. Two Blue Buckets. Who is it? Two Blue Buckets.
Two Blue Bucket, Mr. Two Blue Buckets. Is it another Pete? Because there's a lot of Pete's in photography. Cue quick Googling.
Peter Fraser.
There you go. Well done.
Sorry, Peter. I'm mind blank for a second there. So Peter Fraser gave this lecture when I was at uni, when I was in my masters.
Yeah.
And he's well known for photographing boring still lifes, I suppose, the simplest way of describing them. But it's all about the subtleties in them. I mentioned the two blue buckets.
Yeah.
And these two, they're just two blue buckets. But they're also two buckets in different shades of blue. One slightly newer, one slightly older.
Yeah.
One's got a plastic handle. One's got a metal handle.
Yeah.
So it's all about those subtleties and so on. And what he wanted us to do, and I've had my students do this from time to time.
Yeah.
And I did it on a photo walk last summer, the Analog Wonderland Big Film Photo Walk, when they do all the different ones around the country at the same time. So the walk that I was on in St Albans, I made everyone do this. And what you do is you close your eyes and you just sit or stand or whatever in silence for a couple of minutes. So essentially you're meditating. You're stripping yourself away from your senses, or at least from your visual senses. And then when you open your eyes, you've just photographed what you are drawn to. And the way he described it was he was photographing something using a large format, and he had a moment a bit like what you were describing, where suddenly everything just seemed to connect.
Yeah.
The time, the light, the wind, everything just tied together in that split moment. And he made the photograph that he wanted after lots of trial and error and frustrations up to that point. And if we ever get him on, I'm sure he can describe that much better than me. But I know he can because I've heard it. And it works, and it's quite fun when you do it on a photo walk and you get, half a dozen to a dozen people standing around you in the graveyard outside the cathedral, all standing with their eyes closed. It looks like some weird seance. So yeah, it's a bit of fun for me in that respect. But yeah, people, some think, oh yeah, well, it's a bit of a weird thing. But others have said to me from time to time that they have felt themselves becoming more aware of certain things that they kind of took for granted in that moment before.
Yeah. I think the more you become in tune with things like that, the better the images you make are. I'm looking at our notes because we have drifted. This has been a very waffly yet brilliantly deep, if I do say myself, podcast. The notes I have here say maybe the photos we don't take matter as much as the ones we do, and I think we've kind of.
I think we've said that.
I think we've said that. I think we've. I think we've talked about that. Those images that we never lifted the camera. So I've never photographed another homeless person. The moments I didn't photograph my own mother. The moments you haven't photographed with that gentleman in the hospital. In the doctor's surgery. We didn't take them, but they're still vitally important photographs in our own development. And I think that's kind of what every photographer should maybe have. Those photographs that you didn't take, but still made an impact on you as a creative individual. I think if everyone's honest with themselves, anyone listening to this podcast, of which we now know there is at least 3 people not related to us and not married to us and not being forced to listen to it as part of their homework. But those 7 people listening to us, if you really ask yourself, you'll have a photograph like that. You'll have a moment that you wanted to take a picture but knew that it wasn't right. But actually that image is burnt into your brain forever in a totally different way. Because we make images as a way of preserving, don't we? Sontag and Berger, and you can throw as many theorists as you like at this because they all say the same thing. Photography is a form of preservation, as a form of, in fact, Bart's as well. Let's throw him in there as well. Talking about photographs of his own mother. They're a way of recording our lives and a way of immortalising moments, aren't they? They're a frozen moment in time. And while making those photographs are really important, because they do provide a physical record or a physical pause of that time. The pictures we don't make but are strong enough to stay in our memories, that the man in the waiting room, my mother in a hospital bed, those images have just as much impact as the ones we have made. It got very deep. I'm sorry, folks.
It has been a deep episode. Initially I thought we was going to go down potentially a more political
Yeah.
route with this topic, and times where I've not felt confident enough to photo.
Yeah.
So
I mean, EDL March.
So EDL March is central London, when there was a lot of paranoia and hostility towards photography in the mid-2000s, and finding other ways. So I used to work in London, and there was a movement called I'm a Photographer Not a Terrorist, which was spearheaded by Amateur Photographer magazine, I think, and BJP.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And it was trying to sort of raise awareness that not everyone with a camera is suspicious, as was being considered at that point in time. And I didn't know. I was seeing all these interesting people I wanted to photograph them. I just didn't have the confidence. I drew them instead. So there's a way of, they weren't the photographs I made because I didn't feel I
Brave.
could.
Yeah.
I wasn't brave. So I found other ways of, creating those images that could work.
Yeah. Do you not think that bravery comes with old age?
Is it bravery or is it stubbornness?
Probably a little bit of both. I think as you get older and more confident in yourself, you start to say, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, the worst that could happen is probably getting punched in the face. But
refer back to episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. You do become more confident the more you do these things. There are still times, like we say, and we said before, where you take a picture and you think, oh God, somebody's going to kick off now. But I do think that once you become more aware and more confident in yourself as well, you make images, but you always make a judgment call. Is this ethical? Is this right? Is this important? And then you take those pictures. There's a philosophical Socrates, I want to say, but I could be wrong. And it's the sieves of truth. Do you know the theory I'm talking about?
It rings a bell. I'm not up on philosophy, so I'm not going to pretend I know exactly who it is.
Well, I think it's Socrates. Let me just double check before I destroy my credentials.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, we've already pissed off the NHS, the Sunday Times. You might as well piss off the Greeks at the same time.
Yeah, I believe it's Socrates. Yeah, it was Socrates. I'm not crazy. I'm just slow. So, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And so, before you share any information, you must check if it's true, if it's kind, if it's necessary, and is it inspiring? Is it useful? Basically, and I think we have to ask those questions before we make a picture.
I like that.
Yeah, see? It may be an evening and it may be late, but my brain's still sort of working. And I think that maybe that's
wine. That's brain juice to us.
Yeah, that's what makes me go. That's go juice. Just to clarify, everyone, I only drink one night a week, just to clarify, before everyone thinks, my lord, what a raging alcoholic. But yeah, the sieves of truth, Socrates, have a read, people. Considering it was an ancient Greek philosopher, I think remarkably relevant to photography.
I think it's relevant to everything, really.
Yeah, well.
Not just in terms of creative endeavour, but in terms of what we do, day-to-day living, interacting with other people.
Well, let's be honest, it's very simple policy. It's a very simple policy to live your life by, isn't it? Truth, kindness, necessity, really. That's it. 3 sieves. You can put the inspiration and stuff in there as well, but realistically, is this true? Is it necessary, and is it kind? And when we look at the pictures we didn't take, they weren't necessary. They weren't necessarily kind, but they were true.
I've been teaching too long. You're saying that I'm just seeing Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, that's basically it. There's only about 10 ideas being rehashed multiple times.
Right. Before we get on the education route, I think we need to call it on there.
Yeah. Thank you, people, for listening.
Yeah. Please listen again.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've not had a mental breakdown by listening to this podcast, please tune in to the next episode.
Yeah.
I know.
Right. Yes. But yes, please do. If you have enjoyed this, please do subscribe. Send us a message on Spotify or through YouTube if you're listening there, or on our Instagrams or
Yeah.
photo app or wherever.
However you get in contact.
Yeah.
Must just say we had a really nice bit of fan mail. Fan mail. That's check
Oh,
us
you're
out.
so egotistic, Toby. Come on.
We got an email, but let's call it fan mail because I need a boost from a graphic designer who sent us a nice design for our podcast out. Thank you very much, Sam. It's really nice, and we appreciate your hard work. I just wanted to say thank you for that. It was a good effort. We like it. And if you're interested, guys, go and check him out. Sam Hutt, student at University of Lincoln. He's a nice little graphic designer, so go and give him some work. That's my shameless plug of an ex-student.
And yeah, with that in mind, I mean, we do this for ourselves. We do it because we find it fun. But we do have a little look at where the statistics are coming in from in terms of where people listen, and it's been quite exciting to us that 1/3 of the people who listen to our ramblings are outside of the UK. So America mainly, but Canada, Georgia, Estonia,
Japan?
Poland,
Yeah.
Guyana, Ecuador.
Yeah. We're multinational, mate.
Yeah, so it's really lovely to see, and we'd love to see your photography as well.
I say, please get in contact if you think that we could talk about your work, or you've got something that you think's interesting, or we find interesting. Let us know. We'll have a look.
Yeah, I'd love
We
to.
might not find it interesting, but we might. And Tom will be nice about it as well. He'll send a nice email for you.
I'm always nice.
Yeah, I might not be, but
no more wine for you.
I know, that's it. I'm a mean 2 glasses of wine individual. And on that note, folks.
On that note, thank you all for listening, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
See you later, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye.